Welcome back. All right, so we're finally going to finish off this series, and we finished with Columbus. So I went in a random order. Columbus is the only team whose playoff history I hadn't done. And Columbus is more interesting than it would seem on the surface. I'm sure people say, it should be a 30-second video. Not really. So they didn't come into the league until 2000, 2001. So this is their entire playoff history. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times they've made the playoffs. And this year, we're going to see just what the next round of maybe being able to make the playoffs is going to look like for this team after some pretty big subtractions that have taken place for 2 years now. And I mean, it feels like every year they make it tougher for this team, and the team usually overachieves. So first year, 2000, 2001, they finished 28, 39, 9, and 6. No playoffs, of course. Jeff Sanderson was their leading scorer. 68 games, 30 goals, 26 assists, 56 points. Pretty good season for Sanderson. 2001, 2002, they finished 22, 47, 8, and 5. No playoffs. Ray Whitney is their leading scorer that year. 67 games, 21 goals, 40 assists for 61 points. 2002, 2003, they finished 29, 42, 8, and 3. So, we're 3 years into their existence, and their win totals have fluctuated between 22 and 29. No playoffs, of course. Whitney leads them in scoring again. 81 games, 24 goals, 52 assists for 76 points. The last year before the salary cap, 2003-2004, the fourth year for Columbus, a team which has been pretty cheap when it comes to how much they're paying their players. Really towards the bottom of the league when it comes to overall salaries, which is understandable. They're a new team. 25, 45, 8, and 4 that last year. No playoffs. Rick Nash leads them in scoring 80 games, 41 goals, 16 assists, 57 points. I remember that year there was a running joke I had at work with a coworker about Nash being out on the ice. He had so many goals and no assists, and we're like, so he goes out on the ice and goes, nope, I guess it's all up to me then, because I'm not passing to any of you. That was the joke we made at the time. And, so this was a problem that Nash was a 40-goal scorer, but they just didn't have a star to build to put with him. Having just one star, not usually enough in the NHL. So we get the salary cap after the 2004-2005 season is taken out, right? So 2005-2006, they do post their best record, but it's still pretty mediocre. 35, 43, and 4. No playoffs. Voborny, their leading scorer. Voborny, a forgotten hockey player from the past generation. And honestly, he was pretty darn good. I like David Voborny. 80 games, 22 goals, 43 assists, 65 points. 2006-2007, they actually take a bit of a step back. They finished 33, 42, and 7. No playoffs. Voborny's the leading scorer again. 82 games, 16 goals, 48 assists, 64 points. So Voborny leads them in points, 65 and 64 here. They have 35 wins, 33 wins. Things are still mediocre. 2007-2008. Now they get 34 wins. So 33, 34, 35. 34, 36, and 12. So because they lost a bunch of games in overtime and shootouts, the record gets better. And it's a lesson they've still been able to turn into some decent results over the last few years. Still no playoffs. Rick Nash, their leading scorer in 80 games, 38 goals, 31 assists, 69 points. And the question of can Columbus hold on to guys long term has been there with this team pretty much throughout. And it's been a debate going back to Nash. And is Nash going to commit long term? Is he going to commit? And then he did, and then that contract didn't age well. So 2008-2009, they actually make the playoffs, thanks to the goaltending of Steve Mason. Their goaltending had been okay, but not necessarily great. Steve Mason was fantastic that year. I believe he had 10 shutouts. They finished 41, 31, and 10, and in the first round, they lose in 4 straight against Detroit. No shame in losing to Detroit in the first round or even being swept. They made the playoffs. Nash leads them in scoring in 78 games, 40 goals, 39 assists, 79 points. So he has guys to pass the puck to. Almost has the same amount of assists as he has goals that year. In the playoffs, in 4 games, 1 goal, 2 assists. So, coming out of that year, the expectation is Steve Mason, really good young goaltender. This should be a playoff team. Let's see what they can do beyond this. However, 2009-2010, they fall right back down into mediocrity. Almost an identical record to what they had in 2007-2008. They finished 32, 35, and 15. Mason not able to replicate that rookie season. Nash is the leading scorer again. 76 games, 33 goals, 34 assists for 67 points. So it's a really disappointing turn, and this might have been the most disappointing season in Columbus's history. 2010-2011, still some mediocrity here. 34, 35, and 13. No playoffs. Nash is the leading scorer again. 75 games, 32 goals, 34 assists, 66 points. 2011-2012, with Nash still as their top guy, they finished 29, 46, and 7. It is a miserable run. And again, with this one playoff experience run in here, that was just the 4 games and they got swept, it's becoming this conversation of, so are they ever going to make the playoffs or not? Nash is the leading scorer that year, 30 goals and 29 assists for 59 points in 82 games. 2012-2013, a lockout shortened season. They finished 24, 17, and 7. No playoffs. Vinny Prospal is their leading scorer that year, 48 games, 12 goals, 18 assists for 30 points. So it's a good record, but still no playoffs. But at least the record gets better. They win more in regulation than they lose. Or they win more than they lose in regulation, so that's a start, right? So 2013-2014, they go back to the playoffs. 43, 32, and 7 is their record. Actually, there's 6 playoff appearances. Sorry, I said 5. 6. 43, 32, and 7. And I just for a moment in this series thought maybe Columbus would pull off the upset. I was really rooting for them, but Pittsburgh, just too good. Pittsburgh knocks them out in 6. Johansson was the leading scorer for Columbus that year in 82 games, 33 goals, 30 assists, 63 points. In 6 playoff games, 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points. So, after being in the playoffs, they fall back out again. They're close, though. They finished 42, 35, and 5 in 2014-2015. No playoffs. Foligno's their leading scorer in 79 games, 31 goals, 42 assists, 73 points. Nick Foligno has been a good point producer at points during his career. 2015-2016, now they fall below 500 again, and we're getting back into that really mediocre record. 34, 40, and 8. No playoffs. Brandon Saad's their leading scorer in 78 games, 31 goals, 22 assists, 53 points. So there's some changes made. And then what we see is a run of success that Columbus had never had before. And having been in the playoffs twice up until 2016, it was kind of just assumed that they'd probably be mediocre for good, but at least they have really nice third jerseys, right? Their secondary logo being the cannon, at least they got that, right? Well, 2016-2017, the narrative changes a bit. They go 50, 24, and 8. Fantastic record, blows all the records out of the water. But in the first round, they meet Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, those dastardly Penguins, knock them out in 5. So it's an advance. It's a step forward, but losing in 5 against Pittsburgh makes it a little bit bittersweet. Atkinson's the leading scorer in 82 games. 35 goals, 27 assists for 62 points in 5 playoff games. 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. Moving along. 2017-2018, they did this. This is the first time it had ever happened. John Tortorella, to me, is a huge part of the reason why. And I know that John Tortorella, eventually that relationship with the Columbus Blue Jackets sours for him. But when it's good, it's pretty darn good with John Tortorella. And Ranger fans can attest to that. Tampa fans can attest to that. Canuck fans will sit it out. So they finished 45, 30, and 7. They lost in the first round again, but they lose to the Capitals in 6. So in 2017, they lose to the eventual Cup champions. 2018, they lose to the eventual Cup champions. But in that series against Washington, they won the first 2 games on the road, and then they couldn't close it out from there. Panarin's the leading scorer in 81 games, 27 goals, 55 assists, 82 points. In 6 playoff games, he adds 2 goals and 5 assists. So Panarin is that new star player now, right? And so going into 2018-2019, the question was, okay, so Bobrovsky, who became a star for this team, and Panarin, who is a star with this team, never should have been traded out of Chicago, and I understand why Chicago traded him, but still, they should have found a way to have the money somewhere. But anyways, the question marks around Columbus are many. They are many, and they continue. And yet, the team ends up 47, 31, and 4, despite all the off-ice distractions that could be there. And they win in the first round against Tampa in 4 straight. An absolutely shocking upset, and the first time in Columbus's history that they'd won a round of hockey. Then in the second round, they lose against Boston in 6. But they cost themselves a lot in that that run. They brought guys in 2018, 2019 at the deadline. They gave away a lot of future assets, which we still don't know yet exactly how good some of those future assets could be. But the question becomes, was it worth it? Panarin ends up playing 79 games, 28 goals, 59 assists, 87 points. Basically, for his resume, this looks good. 10 games in the playoffs, 5 goals and 6 assists, 11 points. He didn't mail it in. There was no point where Panarin looked like the effort wasn't there because he didn't want to stay in Columbus. We knew he didn't want to stay in Columbus. We knew Bobrovsky probably didn't either. But both players ended up having really good seasons. Bobrovsky was a little slow off the start, but once he got going, he was pretty darn good. But then they lose those players in the offseason, and they lose a lot of momentum that they had built up, right? So 2019-2020, they finished 33, 22, and 15. But there's expanded playoffs. In the expanded playoffs, they get Toronto in the first round, and it's a series that Toronto really should have won. But Elvis. Korpisalo and Elvis have become pretty darn good in playoffs. And in Elvis's case, he's pretty good during the regular season. Joonas Korpisalo, his numbers in the regular season, pretty mediocre over the last couple of years. But they knock out Toronto in 5, and then they play Tampa again. So Tampa, who they swept in 2019, well, Tampa learned their lesson. And despite some epic games in here, Tampa Bay wins that series in 5. Dubois, 70 games, 18 goals, 31 assists, 49 points. He was the leading scorer for Columbus. And in the playoffs, he adds 4 goals, 6 assists for 10 points in 10 games. Looks like he's going to be a playoff hero. How much things can change in 1 year. 2020-2021, right near the start, Dubois had the shift. Columbus started slow and were in a division of death, being the East, and they finished 18, 26, and 12. Miserable season. No playoffs. Bjorkstrand ends up being their leading scorer. 56 games, 18 goals, 26 assists, 44 points, and that breaks that 4-year-in-a-row streak of them being in the playoffs. And now we're looking at a Columbus team that's being picked to finish last in the Metro and being expected to probably get back into the a little bit below 500 and mediocre numbers range. But what's really fascinating is that 2019 team, the exits from that 2019 team are here in blue. Artemi Panarin, Cam Atkinson, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Josh Anderson, Seth Jones, Nick Foligno, Ryan Murray, Alexander Wenberg, David Savard, Marcus Nudavara, Anthony Duclair, Brandon Dubinsky, Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, Riley Nash, Adam McQuaid, Sonny Milano, Sergei Bobrovsky, to name a few. And the 2021-2022 additions coming in to try to make this part of the board, if I did this again next year, a playoff part of the board, they've added Jake Bean and Adam Boqvist, and I like those 2 additions for Columbus. Brendan Gaunce, who of course Canuck fans remember back in the day. Sean Kuraly, good bottom 6 option out of Boston. And Jacob Voracek, who will be looking to prove that he's got a lot left in the tank with Columbus. So it'll be interesting to see, does Columbus go back into this sea of mediocrity that dominated their early existence? Or can they get back to being good enough to get into the playoffs? Can they go back to being a wild card and maybe knocking off one of the favorites again sometime in the future? And when does that happen? So it'll be interesting to see how things go, because of course some of the names on this board are names that they've lost in this offseason. And as we get ready for next year, yeah, they're gonna be an interesting team to watch. I don't think they're going to be a doormat. I don't think they're going to be an easy team to play against, but I don't have them as a playoff team either. But they've proven people wrong before, namely the year after Panarin left and Bobrovsky. Everybody said, all right, well, they're done, and they weren't. So we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. This rounds out the series. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way through if you did. As we get ready for the regular season, the off-season playlists start to wrap up, and we ramp up all the hockey coverage, and we'll see where a team like Columbus might finish in 2021-2022. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.